so.
Let me get that.
I don't have
Correct.
any extra.
Okay, and don't put the other in.
We're live. We're live.
I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is the regularly scheduled Board of Directors meeting for the Hidden Valley Lake Association, a regularly scheduled meeting for Thursday, September 10th at 6:30 p.m. And as we do, I'd like to begin the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Directors will join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, and we're at another hybrid virtual meeting with the directors here and a few of the staff. And Robin, can you call the roll?
Bruce Bashirs,
Present?
Diane Wiley Bowers,
Present.
Edith Lenz,
Present.
Sue Story,
Present.
Ted Long,
Present.
Kim Dardell.
Present.
All present. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And we'll begin with member comments. And as we've been doing in our virtual world, we've asked members to send their comments to our general manager for reading at the meetings. And General Manager Murphy, I know you have a few at least
I do have a
to
few.
present.
So the first one was shared on Clear Lines last night, but I wanted to read it at the board meeting. Al the Shack wrote this week. He said, "This past Saturday evening at around 7:30, I was at home and my cell phone suddenly died. I tried to power it up several times to no avail. The screen remained dark and nothing worked. I heard a call coming in with my daughter's distinctive ringtone, but it was unable to answer. The second call from her rang, and then another. I live alone. I'm 78 with a cardiac condition, and my daughter in San Francisco becomes concerned if she cannot immediately get in touch with me. I threw on some clothes to go out and find a phone to call her. As I got to the door, the bell rang and two security officers were on the porch. My daughter had received an urgent SOS message from my phone reading, 'SOS, I need help,' with blurry photos of a wall in my home and the floor. Fearing that I had fallen or suffered a stroke, she phoned Hidden Valley Security to request a welfare check. I assured them that I was okay and thanked them just as my phone came back to life. I immediately called my daughter and didn't get to ask their names. Verizon later was unable to determine why my phone had failed, but they did explain that by rapidly hitting the on-off button 3 times, I had triggered an urgent alarm to be sent to my emergency contact. My daughter and I are very, very grateful for the exceptionally prompt response. The officers arrived within 5 minutes of her calling. This was fortunately a false alarm, but had it been a real emergency, that response could have been life-saving. Thank you for exemplifying the meaning of security. Sincerely, Alishak." I've since subsequently learned that the officers who respond were Ed Giovanetti and John Drago. So 2 of our exemplary officers. So they are to be commended in addition to the thanks that Al provided. The next letter is, our email is from Darla McSweeney. She is a member of the Lake Committee, was at the committee meeting, and I'll talk a little bit more about this during my comments in a little bit, but she says, "Hi Randy, I have a comment for the board. At last night's Lake Committee meeting, it's clear that the lake is not going to be dredged due to unforeseen circumstances, COVID-19 and fires, etc. I would like to propose that we consider dredging next summer around July. I do realize that it makes more sense to dredge in the fall as our lake is at its lowest level and the use by the community is at its lowest. But a key factor is since the 2015 Valley Fire, we have been on high alert mid-August through November with wildfires. In an effort to help facilitate the dredging of the lake in a timely manner, I would like to propose that dredging commence mid to late July next year in an effort to mitigate these unforeseen circumstances like the events of 2020. For example, COVID, fires, escrow delay, and other potential problems. In the past 5 years, it is apparent to me that the fall is a problematic time to dredge our lake or any big project for that matter. I hope for the board's support on this matter. Thank you, Darla McSweeney." So like I said, I'll have more comment about that when I talk during my update here in a few minutes. Mark Klein wrote a couple of times back and forth, and I'll paraphrase. If Mark's listening, I apologize, but because of time constraints, it's difficult to read all of what you wrote. But essentially, he read my September Views article where I talk about the loan, and I make a couple of comments, one of which, well, a couple of which he took exception to and was letting me know. First one was that the bylaw 1105 restricts the association's ability to borrow funds in excess of 5% of its operating budget. And I said parenthetically, currently about 500,000. He claimed that was incorrect. He said the language actually says in excess of 5% of the amount of total regular assessments per year. So that actually isn't a lesser amount. So instead of 500,000, that I did qualify that by saying about, it would be $412,619 based on 2020. So I stand corrected on that. Thank you, Mark, for pointing that out. The second comment was that the bylaw, that I say the bylaw restricts associations' ability to borrow funds without the affirmative vote of 2/3 of all members, and he claims that's incorrect. And I did go back and forth with our attorney. I tried to explain it to Mark via some other email conversation. He was unclear as to why we didn't see it that way. I did get additional clarification from Alex just a couple of hours ago, and he said specifically that the line, it says we can't borrow more than 5% of the amount of total regular assessments for a period of longer than 1 year without the prior affirmative vote of 2/3 of the voting membership during a duly held meeting in which a quorum is present. It does not say 2/3 of a quorum. It says 2/3 of the voting membership. And because of the Senate Bill 323, that is every single lot owner in the association. So we would need 2/3, the affirmative vote of 2/3. So it's not a 2/3 of that number quorum, it's an affirmative. So 2/3 of 3,300 is 2,200. And every single one of those 2,200 would have to vote affirmatively. If you think back, and I think I pointed this out in my article, we only had 1,500 roughly vote in this last election, which is a little bit less than 50%. And that's said to be a record, at least by anybody who's been here any length of time. So again, I apologize to Mark, but I did do the due diligence, and that is our attorney's interpretation of that rule. He's suggesting we get another opinion. I believe Mr. Klein at least was a practicing attorney, if he's not still, and he obviously has a legal background. And but because it says 2/3 of the voting membership, it doesn't say 2/3 of a quorum. It said 2/3 of the voting membership. That's the number that has to be reached. And that's why
we've checked that several times over the last several months. So good to confirm it once again, but
right,
seems like we've triple checked that one.
Appreciate the due diligence. I wish he was right. It would obviously be we wouldn't have to go through the vote. And hopefully we would be able to educate enough people to do that. But so the next email comes from Barbara. And again, I apologize for not pronouncing the name correctly. Jenichin, something on that order. She writes, good morning, Randy. I am so upset with the pool closure. I have to preface this. She told me to read it exactly as she wrote it because she didn't want me paraphrasing like I just did for Mr. Klein. So I'm going to read exactly what she wrote. So I'm so upset with the pool closure. September and October are our hottest months here, and not having the pool open is just wrong. This is not right. The general members are getting less and less listened to. Right, you are like behind a curtain. Again, I'm reading what she wrote. Since members can't attend the meeting, eventually we will be back at meeting and you will heard how upset we are. There has to be enough money to keep the pool open through October. It is about time the pool budget is used for the pool. This is to be read at board meeting like it is written, not your interpretation. Barbara Hartman Jenkin. For the board and the public's information, I have received a total of 15 emails, 3 of them since the pool closed on Monday, asking to keep the pool open. I did a little research. The individuals who have requested that we keep the pool open, the high for the family, because the husband and wife have a card, the pool was used 85 times in the period from June, I don't have the date in front of me, but late June when we first opened until the Labor Day was closed. So 85 times combined. Some of those were multiple visits on the same day. The next highest was 39. And that was between 2 families, 2 different families had 39. The next highest was 25. The next highest was 18, then 17, then 9. Well, sorry, there was a 15 in there. One had 2, one had 1, and 2 had 0 visits. And these are the people that were complaining that we were closing the pool early. So I would hardly consider those power users for the most part. I would also state that I did go out there on Monday afternoon, the hottest day arguably of the year, or the second hottest day. I think it was 112. I went out there about 4 p.m. There were 5 vehicles in the parking lot. I didn't get out of my car, but there were 2 heads bobbing in the pool that I saw. I imagine a couple of those vehicles were staff and or people that were parking there to use the big beach across the street. I went back a little after 6, and there were about 20 cars, 15 to 20 cars in the parking lot. And same story, a bunch of people were leaving because it was about dinner time, younger families that looked like were leaving. And again, only a handful of people in the pool. It is unfortunate that the pool closed on Labor Day. It's been said for a while that we were closing on Labor Day. I can tell you that the budget for next year includes operational period between Memorial Day and Labor Day. If we're able to successfully reduce the budget and realize other cost savings, we could potentially keep it open longer, but that decision won't be made until probably July or August next year anyway. So again, it's unfortunate that that's happened. And I'll read one of these emails. I have 2 from Mr. Mike Yates. He has a comment on the bottom that says to read them. It says the emails and questions are to be shared during the next Hidden Valley Open Board meeting. He has posted much of my replies. There's 2 different email strings. He has posted much of my replies on social media, so I felt it was important to read his and then my responses to his questions. First one, Sunday afternoon, GM and board, if you have no idea of the amount of a loan you, all caps, will need, how can you ask the members to vote in favor of it? How can you assure anyone that the loan amount you will be requesting, which you have stated is unknown, will be between 5 and 10 million? And then he quotes me in my article. If that measure is successful, a request to approve a loan for an amount between 5 and 10 million, and then parenthetically note the amount remains unknown at this time, but will be determined soon. My initial response was, Michael, you have the answer right in front of you. I apologize that it was not clear enough for you. We do not yet know the amount we need to borrow, but we'll determine it and announce that amount, finance terms, repayment plans, etc., before the vote, so that the membership will know exactly what they're being asked to approve. My article was intended to provide a little advance notice so the members know what to expect in November before the social media warriors try to spin it differently. Please advise any questions or comments, Randy. He responded almost immediately and says, wow. So I'm going to read these in the order. I'll read what he wrote, and then I responded a few hours later. So it's kind of a back and forth, but I'll say what he says and I'll say what I wrote. So his initial response was, wow, where exactly does Stephen Covey tell anyone that being condescending is a trait of a leader? My response, I'm sorry if you misunderstood my genuine comment as condescending. I have seen a number of posts or emails from you that suggest you aren't clear on one particular issue or another. I thought that this was another. That said, however, might I suggest that snarkiness and/or condescension from one who hopes to become elected to a director, parenthetically, leadership position in November is hardly becoming. His next statement, how astute of you, Randy. If it isn't clear to you how much you and the board wants to borrow, how could it be so clear to me? I said, like I said before, we're working on that answer. As I wrote in my most recent views article, it will be published prior to the ballots being sent out next month so that everyone knows the particulars. His next comment, how many more blank checks will the homeowners, Hidden Valley homeowners have to give you to build and support the Hartman project? My response, there are no blank checks. We have been forthcoming at every turn what the cost will be. The recall result proves that more people want the new building than don't. His next statement, let's not forget the subsidy for the golf amenity, which shows absolutely no sign of diminishing. My response, the golf subsidy, as you call it, remains constant as a percent of the total budget. The budget that was presented at last Friday's budget workshop shows that the percentage will decrease next year. His next statement, I'm almost done. His next statement, how will the Hidden Valley members be able to have an accurate insight into the feasibility and cost effectiveness of paying interest on a loan that you assured everyone that it would not be needed? My response, as I stated in the article, the loan is not needed to complete the Hartman and other reserve projects. Also, as noted, after hearing some members state that they cannot afford the rapidly increasing assessments, the board is simply trying to provide another solution by seeking a loan to keep the increase lower by spreading it out over a longer period of time. The improvements that happen, the improvements will happen regardless. How quickly the dues increase will be up to the membership. And then he said, as a matter of reflection, you yourself are a Hidden Valley Association social media warrior and have placed your own spin on every aspect of this process. My response, I do not post anything on social media. I was asked by the board to begin a blog in order to explain the association happenings in a way that most people would understand. Neither do I spend anything. I provide facts that might otherwise be lost or misrepresented on social media. The fact that others might provide a link to my writings on social media sites is beyond my control. His last question, why do you not allow access to opposing perspectives in the association-supported views, clear lines, and board meetings? My response, the views and clear lines are designed to convey news and other information to the membership. They are not intended for individuals to post opinions, therefore opposing perspectives are not appropriate. And then I asked him, and when have opposing perspectives not been allowed at board meetings? Certainly not on my watch. Please enlighten me. And I asked, say, please let me know if you have any other questions. So he has another email string that I will read in the closing email or member comments. And with that, member comments are complete.
Okay, we're starting to get some comments now. That's great. Moving right along, next item is the approval of the agenda. And there are two items that as president I'd like to table. New business 7B, the bar, the golf shop storage building, and 7C, a bar for vehicle replacement. During our preliminary discussions of these items in executive session, some of the directors had concerns about some of the information and wanted to get information. So if there's no objection, we'll table those. Is there any additions to the agenda? Anyone like to make any additions? Seeing none, we'll proceed with our regular agenda. First report is the president's report, and I have no report tonight. I've found, like probably many of you, that this whole fire, evacuation, COVID, Orange Day, everything is a little disorienting and time consuming, and I'm afraid I haven't been able to prepare a report, but I promise at the next board meeting I'll have a report, more of a summary of what we've been doing this year and a look ahead of what we have ahead of us in the fall. So that's all for me today. Treasurer's report, Treasurer Story, do you have a report?
I don't have anything next meeting. I will. The numbers should be out next meeting.
Okay. And secretary report. Secretary Lentz, we have the summary of a couple of meetings.
Yes. The summary for the executive session, August 8th, the meeting was called to order at 9:01 a.m. All directors were present. GM Murphy and Kim Smith, Director of Accounting, were also present. The board approved executive session meeting minutes from July 23, 2020. The member issues, the board discussed 2 member issues. Formation of contracts, the board discussed 2 contract issues. Meeting was adjourned at 10:51 a.m. and the next meeting was scheduled for August the 27th. And the summary for the executive session, August 27th. Meeting was called to order at 4:17 p.m. All directors were present, including GM Murphy and Kim Smith, Director of Accounting. The board discussed 3 member issues. Formation of contracts. Prior to open session, the board discussed the 4 bars that were on an open session agenda. Personnel issue, the board discussed 1 personnel issue. Legal issues, the board discussed 2 legal issues. Meeting was adjourned at 6:02. Next meeting was scheduled for tonight. That's it.
Okay, great. Thank you for those reports. Next is staff report, General Manager Murphy.
Time for me to talk more.
More, we love hearing you.
Yes, thank you. First of all, I think I need to share, most of you know, during the evacuation, Matt and the Greenview staff prepared meals for much of the law enforcement that was protecting our community. We had 0 reports of looting, so they did a really good job, possibly because we fed them so well. My brother is a CAL FIRE county chief in Snohomish County, and he was over here helping on our complex fires. He brought me a bag of what they feed them, 4,000 calories, and I meant to have a photo of it for tonight. Maybe I'll show it next time. Mostly junk food. It's a chicken wrap is what he had in this, a few pieces of fruit, a protein drink, some things to mix with water to make it taste better, M&M peanut, candies and other things. This was what their normal, this is what they are provided on a daily basis. Our guys got meatloaf, they got, I don't know, I know Matt posted several pictures on Facebook.
Fried chicken.
Chicken.
One of the members of our community, Jockton Stickney, saw what we were doing. He started a GoFundMe page that raised in excess of $4,000. I'll just keep bumping him for some reason. It's turning the screen blue, sorry. That's taxable income to him. So he kept back what he assumed the taxes would be. And we just received a check yesterday from him to help offset our costs associated with feeding those, and these are contributions from the entire community. But again, it was headed up by Jockton in a total amount of $3,912.32. So almost $4,000 was raised to help offset the expense we had. And really, ironically, we started it so that we didn't have to throw away good food. We figured this stuff is perishable, it's going to go to waste, let's do something productive with it. And then we arguably got almost all of our costs back for the food. Obviously didn't pay for labor, but it did pay for the food that was served. So thank you, Jockton, and all who contributed to his GoFundMe cause. So that's the first thing. I would like to announce tomorrow's the deadline. Remind everybody tomorrow's the deadline for the board candidates. As of about 4 o'clock this afternoon, we have a total of 3 candidates who have submitted all their application materials, properly submitted all their application materials. I would say, if you recall, we had a couple last election that did not do it correctly. And so according to our inspector of elections, The 3 who have submitted thus far have correctly done it. So it appears, unless one of them decides to drop out, that we will have an election in November. Those names will be formally announced next Friday. The pool, as we've already talked about, closed for the season on Labor Day. It is anticipated to open around Memorial Day next year. Events continue to be canceled due to COVID protocols. There's been a few inquiries about Halloween and what we might be doing about that, and no decision has been made yet. I do know that I want to say it's Placer County. One of the counties totally banned all Halloween activities, trick-or-treating, etc. I wouldn't be totally surprised to see our county do something like that, but nonetheless, we will comply with whatever rules are out there. We're investigating options, possibly for a trunk or treat kind of thing, where so they might come here or to a parking lot somewhere, and we could hand out candy with gloves and masks and costumes, hopefully, for some of us. But so that's yet to be determined. We've had a few committee meetings in the last few weeks. The only one that had the quorum was Golf and Greens Committee yesterday. We had a late committee meeting last night. Didn't have a quorum. We had a safety and security meeting on Tuesday that did not have a quorum. Part of the problem with the safety and security committee is that 2 members resigned for various reasons. One of them had a schedule change in their work. Another one had some concerns about COVID and felt that it was better, since we're starting to try and meet in person, that we that they not do it anymore. So there are openings. We'll be publishing that information in upcoming clear lines. So stay tuned for that. If you have an interest in any of these things, please let Robin know. Another announcement is that the National Night Out, scheduled for October 6th, due to the lack of safety and security committee members, we will not be having any observance of that. Unfortunately, this would have been our first year, but we don't really have enough people to spread the duties around. Plus, we're still under some COVID restrictions, so it just made sense. I know we're going to try and do some kind of a Firewise or something later on. Maybe we do that then instead. I don't know if there's enough time. Sediment removal project. I read what Darla had to say. Essentially, what's happened is, due to COVID, has limited what state responsibility or state department regulatory departments staff availability. There are a number of things. This property across the street is in escrow. It was reported to us recently, like within the last week, that it may close escrow on September 20th, but the buyer has the option of extending escrow for an additional 60 days. The last permit that we need from Army Corps was submitted for last week because we had to wait for the cultural resource report that needed to be done because we moved the location of this where we were disposing the spoils. So, again, in combination with COVID and all these other things, there's just several delays. There's still an outside chance for Darla's benefit that we could do it this fall. There are some potential complications with that because of low salt oxygen levels in the lake. But we're moving forward to hoping we can still get it done, but we'll make that determination later on. So that's kind of why that came up. Other EC reports chipping timberline was taken away because they were helping with CAL FIRE, dealing with some fire mitigation stuff during the fire. I had to stop touching the computer. So they came back, started doing some chipping, and somebody had a steel bar in with their material to be chipped, and it damaged the chippers, and now they're down, and we don't know when they'll be back. So we're working with Timberline and trying to get him. We're not, it's not our issue. We can't. It's not our cost, but what can we do? We might end up having to go to another person. Maybe there's a chipper he can rent somewhere Or maybe we pick them all up and take them out to the fiddler's lot to get them off the streets and have a pile of them out there. So we're working on that. We're advising that today. So we don't have a total plan yet. But year-to-date budget used is just over, still in good shape there. Total, I don't have a total for the year. Citations, total for the 4 months between COVID and evacuation, we had 316 violations for property maintenance, 49 for unapproved parking, 20 for minor projects started without prior approval, 13 each for refuse container storage and shipping piles not called in, and there were 244 project reviews. As far as weed abatement is concerned, 84 contracted lots, members paid to have RGW abate, 151 repeat non-compliant lots abated to before the June 30th deadline. If you recall, we talked about that before, where we have these folks that for years haven't abated, they don't respond, and we have to do it. So we've worked an agreement with Jose where once the board approved it, we went out ahead of the official deadline and got it done. That was one of the reasons why we were all ready. I mean, when we had our evacuation here a few weeks ago, I was very confident that we weren't going to have any runaway fire in our community, even if it did breach the border, which it didn't. But, again, we were as prepared, maybe even more so than we ever had been. So, and there were a total of 96 non-compliant lots after the July 1st inspection date. So they're doing their job and doing a good job at it. Also, the month of August, we had 30 properties change hands. I get a monthly report. So 30 properties closed escrow in the month of August. So there's some folks out there saying nobody wants to live here, nobody wants to move here. And that, I think, flies in the face of those statements. An average of one a day is better than we've had in a long time, I think. Security statistics, the month of August, we had a total of 49 emergency and non-emergency incidents, and a total of 47 rules enforcements. So of those 47, 21 resulted in a citation with fines, 17 resulted in warnings, and 9 were considered unfounded, so no enforcement action was taken. So we're still running pretty close to 50-50 to what the officers or the administration feels is citable, worth a fine, and not. So it's not like everybody gets cited, gets a fine. And then ultimately individuals have the ability to go to IDR to have that heard. Gate for the month of August was gate activity, all lanes. Let's go back. Visitor lane traffic was 19,756, so just under 20,000. Barcode traffic, 108,524. So we're still running pretty good percentage of visitor traffic. And again, we're working on some analyses to find out maybe what we can do to reduce that number. Department 50, which is the restaurant, Matt Metcalf says we're still working on refreshing the building, interior painting, doing the carpet stuff, because at some point we could open at 25% capacity right now based on the tier that we're on. In conversation with Matt, we decided that it probably didn't make sense, and we had the ability to open up before. If you recall, they eliminated it again about a week after we stopped doing it because we're not getting that much business indoors. Now that the weather's starting to cool off a little bit, or will be soon anyway, we're looking at maybe doing it when they allow us to go to 50% capacity with proper social distancing. But for the time being, we're going to keep using the outdoor tables. We're also talking about trying to put up some kind of temporary cover on the deck on that side of the building, so we have more outdoor seating, which would protect from the elements. We have a few space heaters and things so that we might be able to keep it at least, usable during that time. He says sales are holding steady back to pre-evacuation numbers. There for a while, we didn't have much business or no business technically because we're closed through the evacuation. And he says starting to piece together a new wine list for eventual indoor reopening. So that was all he had to say. My Meet the GM monthly meeting is tomorrow at noon outside the Greenview, kind of over by the barbecue area. I understand we have a microphone that works a little better than one we tried last time, so hopefully people can hear me. My voice is almost back, but not quite. Met with a couple of county representatives today about the Hartman. They had some questions about some of the frontage improvements, curb gutter sidewalk stuff, and we're making some recommendations about alignment for that. So that project is still moving forward, and we'll be having a sign erected down there pretty soon to kind of show some of the artist renderings and the layout, 10,000 foot view type layout of the building. So that should be put up here in the next couple of weeks. So that's all I have for now.
That's all? Okay.
Yeah, I can find more if you want.
Any of the directors have any questions or comments?
No.
For the GM? Good report. Okay, not seeing any. We'll move ahead. Next, we have the consent agenda, and we have on it the regular board meeting minutes of Thursday, August 27th. So would anyone like to pull that item for further discussion? Seeing no one wanting to pull that, and I did a little research on consent agenda, and if no items are pulled, then the rest of the consent agenda is considered passed. So we don't even need to vote. So the minutes are approved for August 27th. Next, we have in our packets the committee and liaison reports. We have the Food and Beverage Committee minutes from draft minutes from July 21st, Safety and Security Committee minutes of July 15th. For the members, for the director's review, we also have a resignation letter from Larry Chandler from the Safety and Security Committee. So we want to thank Larry for all his service to the association and his time on safety and security. I was able to meet Larry through that committee and appreciate everything that he's done for the association. It's been alluded that we had another resignation, but we don't have it in our packet.
No, it's not in the packet. There was some thought that we might be able to work something out, but it doesn't appear that that will happen. So that will be in the next agenda.
In the next one, okay. Okay, and while we're on the committee and liaison reports, would any of the director liaisons to the committees want to comment about their committee activity? I know it's kind of been spotty, and Randy just gave a little bit of an update of what's been going on. They want to give a chance. Sue, not even on Firewise or something?
I wish I did. We did an email roundabout and we didn't come to any conclusions. So once we have something, I'll announce it.
Okay, everything's a little bit in the air like that right now. Okay, next is committee appointments, and we actually have a committee appointment to consider. We have the appointment of Melody Polo Klein to the ECC committee. That sounds vaguely familiar to me. So I guess with stay at home and all that she's back in our community more regularly and wants to get involved again. So I don't know, we've done this many ways. Should we just continue with the voice vote? We don't have a ballot in here.
Okay, let me just call.
We don't need one.
No.
I think we'll do a voice vote. I might mention too that I had an opportunity to talk with the prior ECC chair, Holly Handwalker, and I mentioned to her when we were talking that Melody had wanted to come back, and she wholeheartedly recommended and endorsed her to the board to come back. So I just wanted to mention that. That's one thing. We have a requirement that they attend a meeting to get to know the chair and get to know the committee, but I think we haven't been as good as we could be about getting feedback from the committee before we vote, so.
Well, she did attend last Friday's meeting. Melody did attend last Friday's meeting, and she was on the committee.
Right, no,
for
that's not
several
a, that's
months.
not a question. Yeah, she was on
Yeah.
for some time, so.
Yeah, but she did attend Friday's meeting.
Right. I think the part where we haven't always followed through is to ask the committee, we have a new candidate, they came before your committee, do you have any feedback to the board before we vote? So, and in this case, because I was meeting with her, I got positive feedback, so just wanted to add that. So, okay, well, without further ado, all those in favor of appointing Melody to the ECC? Aye. You so designate, okay. You're back on, Melody, if you're listening.
Congratulations, Melody.
Yes, congratulations.
Okay, so that's that appointment. We have also, as I mentioned, that we had someone leave. I guess at the next meeting, we'll have the committee's recommendation for their new chair. We can consider it next time. On the new business, we have a bar to approve communications role submitted by our general manager.
Okay, so a couple of months ago, we brought a member communication policy to the board. It became rapidly apparent that a policy was not adequate to stop some of our members from harassing staff and some of our contractors or vendors. So the decision was made, board approved the publication of the rules to in the August views. This is the first meeting after the 28-day period, comment period. I've shared comments with the board as I received them. Most of them centered around concerns that we were totally restricting comments to staff. I tried to explain to the individuals who brought it up that we were not intending to restrict conversation, a casual conversation. Obviously, if you come into the office, you're expected to be able to have conversation with staff. If you have a question, you want to make a payment by phone, whatever, and then kind of a reasonable standard, a reasonable person standard. So we amended the language. The red line version was in your packet to show what we changed. Also, comments about not allowing contact with the vendors and contractors. And some people felt that it was infringing on their free speech rights. I was reasonably sure, but I did consult with our attorney. The free speech restriction is only where government tells you you can't say or do certain things. It has no bearing on this particular situation. We are a private business. We are not a government agency. And it makes logical sense to restrict or limit conversation with our vendors. The vendors who have been the recipient of these, some cases, verbal abuse, were supportive of this. One of our vendors recently, probably only half jokingly, suggested he wasn't interested in continuing to do business with us because of some of the things, the ridiculous, repeated, harassing type of emails and phone calls he was receiving, in spite of the fact of having been told stop by me and them. So it becomes necessary, unfortunately, like a lot of rules and laws are, you got to make a penalty created for a few knuckleheads who don't take no or won't take no for an answer. I would like to make sure everybody remembers and understands. I've said this before, but this process or this rule has been in process since about a year ago. So it predates the recall, it predates any of the other stuff that's come up recently. This became necessary because of an incident with a member that was harassing staff and our attorney. So I know the Clear Lines comment said it was the attorney only, and it wasn't. It's been more than one of our vendors. So anyway, the red line, like I said, it talks about And number 2, we added language that says prevented from communicating in an unreasonable or harassing manner. 3, we added the word staff, and it said, unless otherwise instructed by the association in writing, members may communicate directly with association staff, including via email, unless otherwise instructed by the association in writing. We softened some of the language about the potential fine from will to may. Again, you know, our intent is not to make money in this. Our intent is to get our members to listen to reason. And sometimes they only listen to reason if you hit them in the pocketbook. So that's what I have to say. I'm ready to answer any questions.
Any questions for Randy, or do we want to make a motion and start discussion on this?
I move that we approve and enact the member communication rule.
I second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the member communication rules as presented. We'll have comments. We'll start on the other side this time. Mr.
No
Tim,
comment.
so
I
Edith,
approve.
no comments?
Nope.
Diane?
I'm glad for the, clarification. I think it's a good thing.
Okay. Sue?
Yes, it's needed. From what we've been told in executive session a few times, it's definitely needed, unfortunately needed.
Ted?
I agree, it's needed.
Okay, Kim?
I agree also. And I like the changes to clarify the,
Okay.
you don't like the changes?
No, that's good comments. Just want to get your comments. I was just getting ready to start. My comments are that I was all in favor of doing the policy, I guess the way we started, kinder and gentler, and I thought that would be enough to take care of it. Unfortunately, as Randy has described, some people are very persistent and continue to abuse what the rules are and what they're told. And so unfortunately, I think there is something more that's needed. Unfortunately, the more that we've worked on this document, the more it's become unfavorable to me. The very first section, I have major problems with it. The number 1, it says board members will no longer reply to emails to their personal email addresses. Well, I have 3 emails at home, so that means I can't answer anybody that writes me to my personal email. So I understand the intent, but it's not what it says. Members of the association shall not email directors at their personal email addresses. We don't advertise our personal email addresses. We only give the members a group address for the entire board. So I don't have a total problem with that line, but I think we should be giving our individual addresses then to make so that they can correspond directly with us if they want. But the idea that I can't answer my own email at home, I think it at least needs for board business or something like that. In the second section, this is really, I think, the part that we need it the most for. Members and guests shall be prohibited from communicating with the association's third-party vendors and contractors. And I don't care for the new wording in an unreasonable or harassing manner, because much of the communication I've seen hasn't been harassing. It's been generally polite in tone. It's just been duplicative and improper. So I don't know that you could say some of the things that we're trying to stop are really unreasonable. Maybe after they're told the first time not to do it, then if they did it again, that might be considered unreasonable. But to me, that it makes it more complicated. Then in the third section, I like it all except the second line. It says members shall not communicate directly with staff, legal counsel, accountants, consultants, or other professionals. Well, we just said in number 2 that they can't communicate with legal counsel, accountants, consultants, and other professionals. So we're just adding that they can't communicate with staff. And I don't think that that's the way that we want to say it, as many people commented that they should be able to talk to staff under most circumstances. So saying that they can't communicate directly. And then the very last, well, changing the things from will to may. I think if we want to do this, we should say that this will happen, not that it may. I mean, that kind of softens it again. I would like to see the first violation resulting in a warning rather than a fine, but taking out the may part and put in that this will happen. Number one, you'll get a warning. Number two, you'll get a fine. Number three, you'll get an additional fine. So I guess I'm in favor of the document, but I don't think this is the properly worded document going forward right now.
I have a couple of comments to some of your concerns, Bruce.
Yeah.
The reason the language is included in about using your personal email for association business, I have two words, Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
Think about all the stuff that went on. I mean, we're not a government agency.
No, you missed my, I'm not saying, where does it say for company business? Nowhere on here
Well,
does it say for
certainly
company
the
business.
intent. People, if you recall back last fall when we had an incident with a particular board member, or member, not a board member, but a member of the association, she continued to, or was sending stuff to your personal email address. And you, and then subsequently I had to remind them that do this on my business, my Hidden Valley. That's kind of what this is directed toward is, again, nobody's going to get fined the first time they do it. They're going to get fined if they continue to do it. The harassing is the repeated stuff, not necessarily using bad language or threatening anybody. It's not unlike some of the emails that I read earlier where there was a back and forth where you get the answer. It's not an answer you want to hear, so you ask again, maybe a little differently, but the answer is what it is, and they don't stop. So that's kind of the purpose of that language. The concern about members, about staff, the last sentence that was added says members, and number 3 may communicate directly with association staff, including via email unless otherwise instructed. So again, people can talk to them, they can send emails, they can make phone calls, but at some point, if it becomes problematic for staff, then the direction will be, I'm the liaison, I'm the contact inside the office. It's again, just like the rules, what I mentioned, the rules are made for people that don't listen.
But again, just looking at number 3, then you have a contradictory document. You say members shall not communicate directly with staff. And then you say members may communicate directly with staff. So you said 2 different things in the same paragraph.
Staff is redlined though, in that first one. It says members shall not communicate directly with, and then staff is redlined. And it says legal counsel, accountant, consultant.
Well, I don't have any red line in mine. Maybe that's the problem.
I have red line in mine. I mean, it's not red because I printed it black and white, but it's a faint red line from what I can tell.
Crossing through it?
Yeah.
Red on the
Red
screen.
light up on the.
Okay, well,
It's red light up.
That's
maybe I
changed.
shouldn't have
That's
said
the-
anything because I don't have any, well, staff, I have one little, I could see a little,
Yeah, it's.
members shall
faintly
not
red line.
communicate directly with legal counsel. Okay, well, then you're just repeating that, what you said in number 2, so why do you need to say that? But okay, I realized I didn't see the little faint cross out of staff.
But yeah, I provided a red line version showing what the changes were from what,
It's right up there.
Right, so I can see on the will that it was lined out and May was replaced. I can see those. Are
Oh,
there
yeah, it's on
other-
the screen.
It's on the screen.
I didn't read it on the screen.
kind of hard to see color with the lights.
Right, so the red has been added. It's additional new comments that have been
Right.
added that are part of it.
But staff has got a line through it.
Right. So then why are you repeating the same sentence that you put in number 2?
They may communicate directly with legal, or may not, or shall not communicate directly with it. It is lined out.
Just staff, but not all the other members. It's not
No.
the whole rest of the sentence. Well, you just said it up above that they're prohibited from communicating with the third-party vendors and contractors, which is
Right.
basically legal counsel, accountants, consultants, or other professionals. I just think I agree with the intent of it. I think the purpose, I'm actually willing to go the next step of do this. I think it's an extra step hopefully we didn't need to do, but I just think that some of the language is still wrong, and we're going to find out as we begin to enforce it. You know, again, like in the very first sentence, that I can't, if I open one of my emails at home, I could be fined $50 if I literally read this rule.
And I would also like to add that after consultation with Alex, these changes, because it is reducing the severity of the language is more permissive, that it's not necessary to republish. So assuming the board approves this tonight, it'll be effective immediately.
Okay, well, I've gone on. Any other second comments by any of the directors? Put in another word. Okay, well then we'll go ahead and we have a motion in the second to approve the communications rule. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, all those opposed, myself. So motion passes 5-1. Next item is to discuss the sale of HVLA lots.
We have 46 parcels currently in Hidden Valley's inventory. My recollection is only one currently has a meter. This item was before the package. I think there's like close to 100 pages of documentation here in the board packet that shows this has come before the board and or the finance committee at least once or twice before. The last time they brought this, they were getting ready to auction or sell them, and then the moratorium was placed upon us. So now that the moratorium has been lifted, staff felt that it was time to talk about this, kind of get an idea. Does the board want us to kind of put them up for auction, just kind of notify everybody that these lots are available? There's several pages that show where the lots are. There's some descriptions of most of them. And so basically looking for some board direction. We talked before, I think at the budget meeting last Friday, that there two of the parcels have been discussed with some members, and they showed an interest in purchasing them from the association. So there is some interest, but how much, what do we want to do? Do we want to get a realtor in here and maybe they give us a proposal that says, well, I'll sell them all and I'll give you a flat rate, for their efforts? Do we let staff handle the sale? So there's a lot of variables here, but you can see the options they had before there in 98, 2001, and 2012. So just looking for some direction. And if in fact the board chooses to start liquidating these properties, this would be another item we can put in Clear Lines and or the Views magazine. So that's that, unless you have questions, in which case Kim is here to answer your questions if I can't.
Okay, so what do we do now? So we want to make a motion? I don't know, it sounds like just discussion.
Yeah, I thought it was just
Kim?
discussion.
What are you in favor of?
Yeah, discussion.
My recommendation would be to go with what the subcommittee suggested. They give you two options. There was a subcommittee back in December or in 2015 that went through all of these lots, researched them, and they made two recommendations or two suggestions on how to go through it. And one was to put a for sale sign, HVLA, put a for sale sign on each and every one of them that says, if you're interested, call the association. And then the association would then tell them to contact a real estate agent, their real estate agent, not our real estate agent, their real estate agent, and their real estate agent would go ahead and be the buyer and the seller's real estate agent. So it would be theirs and ours. Cost usually, and we found this out back in 15 when we actually sold them, that the cost is around $500. It's on the upper level. The cost was $500 to negotiate the sale. for these lots at that time. So I don't know what it is currently. The option Randy was talking about was to give one real estate agent or contact real estate agents and ask if they want to bid on, a cost across the board for selling all 46 of them, or however many they can. The only caution on that is to make sure we set parameters on how long that is in case we we can move on to a different real estate agent. So, or just to take them to auction is one of your other options. And options are costly, and we can set the price, but we're not as in control as we would be if we wanted to negotiate with the real estate agent. We would just set a minimum and then go from there. And those minimums might be less than what somebody would be willing to give us if they didn't know what the minimum was.
Are you going to is somebody going to appraise the price of each of these lots? I mean, if you have a couple of real estate agents they're not going to be the same price, all of them.
No, if you looked at these,
Okay.
it was done back in 2015, but it was done based on when the moratorium would be lifted, was the prices that they put in here, wasn't the moratorium prices. And that again was in February 2015.
Okay.
And hopefully we can get a little bit more for some, but some of them I don't think we'll get much for.
I like the idea of make me an offer. I don't think we should even put a sum on them necessarily.
I think putting a sign on them draws interest.
Well, not assign a sum,
Okay.
a sum, yeah.
Yeah.
Like that.
Sign
A sign on them draws interest that maybe, the next door neighbor sees it go up. Maybe the next door neighbor is more interested in taking that lot themselves versus having somebody potentially build next to them. So.
Okay, well, for sake of this, I guess I would make a motion that we accept option A. It's something I thought we were currently under, that we sell the lots basically ourselves, advertise them ourselves and ask that they have a realtor and they contact us with a offer, and then we'll consider the offer and decide what we want to do from there.
I second that.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second, basically to take the subcommittee's suggestion number A. So discussion, Edith.
I think that's a good idea. I certainly wouldn't want them to go up for auction. That would not work. I like the idea of the sign. And I think it might get rid of a few of them.
So
Okay,
tell me again when the dates were with the price, even though they were anticipating
There's
the
no
moratorium
prices.
being lifted? What are the dates of the prices on all these?
2015.
Okay, so that's 5 years ago. Things have gone up.
right, so we're not setting the price,
Yeah, right.
we're just putting them up for sale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Who's setting the
Setting
price?
the price would be something that
Who's setting the price?
the board would do when the offer comes in as to whether they would accept the offer or not accept the offer.
Oh, okay.
And we can talk to Carson, who was part of this committee, and see if he would be willing to, look at the numbers that they placed on then versus now. I think some of them would might get a little disappointed with the prices that were placed there. But some of them, maybe there is more of an interest than we know out there on some of them. Some of them are very nice lots.
And one portion of wanting to do this is to get some money for the lots we hold, but the other bigger portion is to put them into members' hands that are going to develop them and pay dues assessments for them and get them into participating members of the association again. So that all go into what the price will be.
And just to add something, these are currently not included in the 3,272 lots. So these, as we sell them, they would be added to that number, which then divides the responsibility of the overall cost of by one or however many more we end up selling. So And theoretically, everyone that gets sold lowers our collective dues that much, that fractional amount.
Lowers the debt and increases cash flow, all the good stuff.
Right.
Okay, Diane, any other comments? Director Story?
Yes, I'm in favor of it. We don't have to maintain them. We wouldn't have, I mean, this, the cost of
Right, yeah.
abatement on those every year is
Absolutely.
incredible.
My only concern is I hope we know
But of the
to
diff-
get the right price. That's
of
it.
the different processes, you figured that's a good process.
Yes,
Mhm.
I actually attended those meetings back in 2015.
Okay.
Yeah.
Director Darnell, comments?
Let's do it. I'm good with it.
Okay. Director Long?
Do we have prices here on what we think all of them are worth? I see a
Those
couple.
were 2015 prices that are probably changed now, but those are the estimates at one point in time, what somebody thought they might be.
There's one for every one of the lots?
Yes.
But we're not,
No,
we're,
not for every single, no.
Not for every single one, okay.
we're not being held to those prices. That's just an estimate, okay.
What I'm for it. I would like to see a subcommittee go around and value the lots. Give us a rough idea of what we think the lots are worth.
And I can ask Carson, he did this, Carson Underwood, with Hidden Valley Road. I can ask him to take a peek at them, and give us his ballpark on them. He is very familiar with our association, as is a lot of other real estate agents, but he did work on this subcommittee to begin with. So you might have a little bit more insight than if we turn these over to somebody that wasn't on that committee.
Something needs to be considered though. In 2015, that predates the fire, I believe. And building costs are now $300+ a square foot. The CSD just recently increased their connection fees. To if you do water and sewer combined, it's close to $20,000. All those factors are going to have an impact on the cost of our lots. So, because it's a cost to build. The one thing we have going for us is there's obviously, like I mentioned earlier, with 30 houses closed in August. I heard the other day we only had like a half dozen homes on the market currently. So it's a supply and demand thing. So if somebody comes in and has a reasonable amount of money, can afford that $300+ a square foot to build, they're going to go for a lot. But otherwise, I know that was one of the reasons why I bought an existing home, and I couldn't afford the cost to build. So just making a general comment about that.
I was, because
Okay. Hold on, Ted.
I just don't want to see us give them away. I'd just like to get a rough estimate to where we can
Right.
start. We can always come down.
Well, we're not giving them you make me a price what you think it's worth.
Well, that's what I'll be willing to go along and look at every lot.
Okay, because I was going to say there really isn't a price for each lot until there's a buyer and a seller that agrees on a price.
Yeah.
So we could get 100 different estimates and then we'd have 100 different estimates till somebody makes an offer. So when they make an offer, I think we can then look at other ask realtors. We can all drive by. We can consider what we know. And there'll be a number of things that we can put that offer through to see if it's appropriate. And it's not, again, not to get the most money, but it's to get them in the hands of paying members and back in use again. Part of it. So, okay, my comments, I guess the auction idea, I'm totally against that. I think people will buy all the good properties cheap and leave us with the rest of the bad properties. I'd love to be able to do some kind of yard sale grab bag thing that you buy two and we throw in a property of our surprise for you, something like that. But I think with all the options, I think the one that we're talking about, that the association do a little bit of marketing, advertise that they're available, and then have the realtors come back with their client and an offer to us is the best way to go. So if somebody else had additional comments, Diane, did you have something else? No?
No, I was just going to say that building costs, just because we just bought a house, that builders now have to do sprinklers in the ceilings, and as of this year, I think each home has to have solar.
Yeah.
So so I'll just put an extra.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay. So any last comments? All those, I guess we'll call the motion. All those in favor of accepting that recommendation going forward for the lots, please signify so. Okay. 6-0, that was easier than I thought. So now you say we have two, so now we can bring those two forward that we have them, or encourage them to bring them forward. Okay, and that brings us to our last item is our member comments, and we know we have one from Mr. Yates. Did we get any others?
For sure one. Let me check my emails real quick and see if I had any new ones. I also had a couple of things that I forgot to mention during my update.
Oh, good. Okay.
One of which was the fire breaks that were done by Kevin Smith and Rob Brown in conjunction with CSD and looking to get FEMA grants to pay for it. We want to thank them very much for their diligent effort and hard work. But they were that Raven Hill area, that whole eastern side of the association now has a pretty substantial fire break. We're looking at some costs associated with putting a fence up in the area along Raven Hill too, because that's now open, obviously, to people on foot. Trying to cooperate with the fire department about a potential for a gate to allow fire apparatus through there. There's some confusion about how big that needs to be, but they'll be working on that soon. Talking about properties, we've had recent conversation with the county tax assessor about trying to get, we've got, I think it's about 25 lots that have deceased owners, and working on a way to get those into our hands lien free. And so there'll be more information coming about that, and kind of going back to the conversation we just had about these 46 lots, get them into the hands of somebody who's going to develop them or at least pay the assessment would be helpful. So as promised, I have another email from Mr. Michael Yates.
Before you do that, I just wanted to comment about the fencing. We're a gated community, not a fence community.
Right.
So the notion that we have to have a fence all around us is not really what we're about, is the limited entry. Is there a particular area of concern through there that people are going
behind
through?
Raven Hill Park.
Through, I'm sorry?
Behind Raven Hill Park.
They're
There's
using it as a
quarter mile.
shortcut to somewhere, or?
I'm sorry.
It goes into private property.
That's
Right, but behind us, all around our whole community, it goes into private property, and we're not responsible for fencing our whole community.
No.
It's a problem area. Right behind Raven Hill Park, safety and security, they keep reporting kids are back there. There was a couch back there. There's garbage debris. They had a fire pit. They had, almost every other meeting, safety and security, we get a report of that area. It's just, for me, fire concern. People that live up there, if those kids start a fire, it would be nice to keep them out. Security knows that they're there, that knows the areas, but they can't be everywhere at the same time. So that's what I'm assuming is what Randy's referring to.
Okay.
Is that really horrible area.
It's
back
not going to
there.
be an expensive wooden whatever. We're not building a wall.
Okay,
It's
never
gonna
mind.
be-
And
we
this has
have,
been for years, Bruce.
if you recall, many of the stop sign posts were replaced. We saved all of those posts. We've replaced some cyclone fence, like the area we were talking about where the golf barn shed is going to be constructed that we tabled till the next meeting. That was open for years. When we took all those posts out, I told Matt, let's use the posts. We should have enough posts to do that entire stretch, and help reduce the cost. So we'll be basically paying for cyclone fence for about that distance. That, like I said, there's some conversation about whether or not the fire department even wants us to put a gate in. Makes a certain amount of sense to do that. It's not intended to be a fire emergency gate in the sense of providing emergency egress, but in the event a fire starts in that area, I was thinking the fire department might want a gate to be able to get through that area to fight it. Maybe not, I don't know.
Or a non-fence.
Huh?
Or a non-fence to get through.
Or, yeah. So anyway, Mr. Yates's email also sent on Sunday, GM board I will make this very easy for you to respond to my question about your statement that the amendment to bylaw 1105 will make it consistent with most, capitalized most, other association election requirements. And then he quotes again from my article, request to amend bylaw 1105 to make it consistent with most other association elections, parenthetically, a majority of the standard 20% quorum in order to pass a loan request. Then he asks, can you please name any 2 other associations that only require 20% quorum in order to It says this email is to be shared at the board meeting, so that's why I'm reading it. And again, there have been some comments posted on social media with comments taken out of context. So my initial response was, Michael, I apologize again that you were unable to understand my simple comment. To be clear, the statement is not, all caps, about what other associations do. It is about being consistent with other voting requirements of our, all caps, association. Most of our other voting requirements only require a quorum of 20% of the membership, not 2/3. As far as what other homeowners associations might do, I would expect that most, if not all, have a similar and/or consistent quorum percentage. But I will leave it to you to verify whether or not my assumption is correct, as I do not have the time. Please advise any other questions or comments. His response back a little while later was, what I would like to share with you are some links to Davis Sterling and what they have to say about aspects of funding reserves and loan authorization. And then he gives a hyperlink to the Davis Sterling website for duty to fund reserves, another one about authority to borrow, a third about bank loan checklist, and a fourth about approval by members. And he says, I would advise that any dialogue that you have with your attorney about the legalities of changing a quorum needed to approve a homeowners association loan from 2/3 to below a majority of members is in writing. This allows you to share with the members a legal opinion about lowering a quorum of members down to 20% of the submitted rather than a majority of members. This would then allow you to, once again, allow you to demonstrate your commitment to transparency, all capitalized. Then he goes on to say, your article, a request to amend bylaw 1105 to make it consistent with, and he bolds and underlines most other, all caps on other association election requirements, parenthetically, a majority of the standard 20% quorum in order to pass a loan request. He goes on to say, a simple comment would have noted that you would like to have a quorum of affirmative votes be the majority of the 20% of the votes submitted to be the standard for any Hidden Valley Association vote. Plus, the majority of other voting matters do not authorize expenditures loans between a moving target of somewhere between 5 and 10 million, parenthetically, perhaps at an unknown percent and for an unknown term. What do you feel would be a timely notice regarding the loan amount that would be requested, the loan percentage, the loan term, and the effect loan will have on Hidden Valley reserves? And then he again states his email and its contents are available for presentation during the open meeting of the board. My response to that email said, Michael, we are well aware of what Davis Sterling has to say about the issues you raise. In the event you are unaware, one of the founding partners of our legal team, parenthetically, and in their business name, Adam Sterling, helped write the legislation that is known as the Davis Sterling Act. We have consulted with them and are currently working on the ballot language to make it perfectly clear to our membership what their vote means. As I have written to you several times now, that information will be made available to the membership in plenty of time for everyone to make an educated decision on how to vote. Since the attorney will craft the language, I must inform you there will be no need for a written legal opinion to share with everyone. I would also tell you that your emphasis, I bolded and underlined, which made reference to his where he says other associations, that your emphasis on the wording below assumes too much. I have already told you what I meant when I wrote it. The fact that you choose to believe otherwise is not my concern. Have a nice day, Randy. And then I said, P.S. Since we have discussed this matter multiple times and it has consumed far too much of my time today, I will not be responding to further emails about it from you. I did not receive any additional emails from him, so obviously, about this matter anyway. So obviously he received the message, but like I said, there's been some of my comments have been posted on social media, somewhat out of context, arguably misleading some of the members about what I said and how I was behaving with him. I again offer any apologies about the assumption that I was being condescending. That was certainly not my intent, but I did put an end to the conversation by saying, you keep asking the same questions. I've answered the question. You're not accepting what I had to say. I'm sorry you don't accept it, but I'm not going to talk about it anymore. And that also goes back to the membership rules that we just implemented that will be effective immediately. So for individuals who do not take the instruction that the conversation is over, then become subject to that fine. That's all I have to say.
That's all your member comments?
That's all the member comments. I don't have any new ones.
Okay, well, if we have these back and forth, let's think maybe you and Robin can be the member and you can be the GM.
Yeah, maybe next time. Yeah, next time,
Keep
sure.
it straight, so, okay.
Could be nice.
Well, we appreciate the members writing in, and it is
Absolutely.
difficult now that we're doing this virtually to hear from the members, so we want to encourage them to continue to send messages to the GM for the board. So with that, I think we'll adjourn the meeting. Our next meeting is on Thursday, September 24th at 6:30. So with that, we'll go ahead and adjourn at 7:54.
Watch that live go end.